All right, so get this. We're diving into some seriously classified files today, listener.
Ah,
Your intel drop on Laura Kinney, a.k.a. X-23. Well, it reads like something straight out of top secret
it
facility.
really does. Like someone swiped a whole wiki entry from a high-security server. Timelines, cross-referenced, data points. We've got a lot to unpack.
And that's what we do here, right? Help you navigate this maze and separate the fascinating from the irrelevant. Think of it like, I don't know, curating a museum exhibit out of all this raw data.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of exhibits, let's start with the main attraction. The fact that X-23, she's a clone of Wolverine.
Right. You see that and you're like, okay, Wolverine 2.0, got it. And here's where it gets really interesting. It turns out the cloning process wasn't exactly a clean copy-paste job.
Yeah, things get a little murky, let's say. When you factor in Sarah Kinney, she wasn't just the geneticist running the project. The source makes it clear she actually provided genetic material for the cloning.
Hold on, so X-23's creator is also...
Genetically speaking, her mother. Which
Fair
throws a whole new wrench into things, doesn't it? It's not just about replication anymore, it's about family legacy, all wrapped up in this ethically questionable science experiment. And the deeper you go into the cloning program, the more disturbing it gets.
Disturbing how?
Well, according to your files, Laura wasn't the first attempt. Her codename, X-23. It comes from the fact that she was the 23rd try.
Wow, okay, so that number X-23, it's not just a cool name. It's chilling when you think about it like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It reinforces how she was viewed, not as a person, but as an experiment. The 23rd attempt.
Yeah.
And that's even before we get into her upbringing, which, well, the file doesn't sugarcoat it. Brutal is an understatement.
And that's saying something considering she was literally raised to be a weapon.
Right. Constant physical and psychological conditioning.
Yeah.
Pushing her to her absolute limit,
Yeah.
all designed to hone her into a living weapon. And then there's the whole trigger scent thing.
Oh, yeah. Talk about messed up. That's straight out of a nightmare.
It's a form of control, a chemical weapon designed to send her into a berserker rage, completely bypassing any conscious thought.
So on top of everything else, she's got practically zero agency. Someone else can just trigger her like that.
Like a living weapon with an off switch. It's chilling. And the thing is, that lack of control, it really bleeds into her struggles with self-harm later on,
Yeah.
which the source goes into in some detail.
Yeah, we see that mentioned quite a bit in these files.
Yeah.
And it's a side of X-23 we can't just gloss over. We're talking about someone who can regenerate from almost anything, and yet she still hurts herself. That says something about the psychological trauma.
Right. It really does.
Yeah.
The source seems to suggest that it's her way of regaining some control, maybe.
Hmm.
In a life where she's constantly being manipulated, hurting herself is the one thing she can control.
It's heartbreaking, honestly. It adds another layer to her, don't you think? You see someone with those powers and you assume they're invincible. But the reality is much more complicated. It makes you wonder, how do you even begin to process that much darkness, to move on from that kind of trauma?
Well, that's where things take an interesting turn. Because despite all that darkness, despite the trauma, there are these glimmers of, I guess you'd call it light. Especially when it comes to her relationship with Gabby, who the source describes as well another clone of X-23.
So her clone sister, that's wild.
It is. Although knowing what we know now about Laura not being a true clone, maybe sister is a more accurate term. Regardless, the point is their relationship becomes a source of healing for X-23.
So after a life of being used, being controlled, she finally finds that connection, that family bond with Gabby.
And a healthy one at that, which is important to emphasize. This isn't another toxic dynamic. The source really highlights how their relationship allows Laura to experience something she was denied for so long, unconditional love and support.
It's like she's finally learning what it means to be part of a family, to care for someone and be cared for in return without strings attached. That's huge for anyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it speaks volumes about her capacity for growth, for change.
Yeah.
Something we see throughout the source material. This constant push and pull between the darkness of her past and this drive to be better, to find something good.
It's like she's got one foot in the light, one foot in the shadows, trying to find her balance. And then, amidst all of this intensity, we get this little detail about her that feels so human, so relatable. Her love for spicy food.
Right. It's almost funny when you think about it. This incredibly deadly assassin with a soft spot for a good curry.
It really makes you stop and think.
Yeah.
Like, she can take down an entire squad of armed guards, but she also has this thing for super spicy noodles. It's those little contradictions that make her feel real,
It's what makes her so fascinating to unpack, I think. This incredibly skilled assassin who just wants, I don't know, a normal life, a loving family, good food. It's something we can all relate to in a way, that need for connection, for something good and genuine.
Totally. And it feels like even with all this intel, we've only scratched the surface of her story, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is just the tip of the iceberg, really. Think of it like we've opened the first page of an encyclopedia entry. There's a whole universe of information out there. We could spend hours dissecting her time as Captain Universe, for example, or that whole thing with the vault.
Oh man, the vault don't even get me started. Centuries trapped there with time moving all wonky. And the source just mentions it in passing, like it's nothing. There's a whole other lifetime of experiences crammed into that one sentence.
It's definitely a story for another deep dive. But that's the thing about X-23. There's always more to uncover, more layers to peel back. It's a journey of discovery that never really ends.
And that's where you come in, dear listener. We've given you the map, the compass, the essential tools for this expedition. Now it's your turn to explore. What will you discover about Laura Kinney? What hidden depths will you unearth?
That's the beauty of these deep dives, isn't it? We're not just giving you answers, we're sparking new questions, giving you the information you need to draw your own conclusions.
So go out there, embrace the mystery, dive headfirst into the enigma that is X-23, and until next time, happy exploring.